What's up, everybody? It's the Hardy Construction. You can find us at hardyconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardyconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hardy Construction with Yost Comp. And
Hunger.
today's film is
Thirst. Get it? I said Hunger. 2009.
I don't get it. Thirst, 2009. Bakjui, the original title. Directed by Chan-Wook Park, written by Si Kyung-jong and Chan-Wook Park. Starring Kang-ho Song, Uk Bin Kim, Hae-suk Kim. I could say that.
Hey, don't be mean.
Though that's the name. Though through a failed medical experiment, a priest is stricken with the vampirism and is forced to abandon his ascetic ways. I messed that up. He didn't say the vampirism. It's just vampirism. So
Vampirism.
This is a film directed by the fabulous director Chan-Wook Park. If anybody's knowledgeable of this director, he's a South Korean director who did the wonderful works Old Boy, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and the Lady Vengeance, and most recently The Handmaiden, which a lot of people.
This is the least
enjoyed.
Depressing Korean
South
movie
Korean
I've
film.
seen.
Yeah, it's still depressing, but there's something light and
It's
fluffy
more lovable.
about it, right?
This one. It's definitely less sad at the end.
So Chan-Wook Park, obviously, his Vengeance trilogy, his film Old Boy was really super popular. Got remade by what's his face, Spike Lee, with Josh Brolin and Sharlto Copley and stuff like that. I don't think anybody saw it, so they told him to go fuck off.
Right.
And but he also did. I remember I've spoken about these films before whenever we've done Korean films, but we've never done a Chan-Wook Park film, I believe, which sucks because he doesn't really do horror films. And he did the most depressing film ever, which was Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance.
Okay.
It's a great film. I would recommend everybody see that film, but it's like a movie you could only see once because you're like, oh boy, like after you watch it, you're like, oh, this is depressing.
So sad.
We've seen a good amount of Korean films on this podcast, and they're always completely depressing. And
but this one wasn't depressing to me.
Right. But I'm saying we've seen some that are pretty depressing, and this is that movie is so fucking depressing I couldn't watch it again. And it's like a revenge thriller, but it's so well done, and it's like a really amazing film, and everybody should watch that film, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Also, obviously, see Old Boy. I wasn't too I didn't like Lady Vengeance that much, but it was still a good film. And apparently The Handmaiden was like a really good film that people like, but it's like a split thing. I think The Handmaiden is a version of that, that show that's just coming out called The Handmaiden. What the hell is it called? Handmaiden 2? The one that's on Amazon?
Is that about the people that could get pregnant or something?
Yeah, like it's a dystopic future where women are basically...
Yeah, it's like Children of Men, but like a little different. Yeah,
the women are treated sort of like livestock, and if you can have children, you're sort of given precedence over others, something like that. I think it's a similar. I think it's based on the same book, but everybody's loving the new Handmaiden show on Amazon. Anyway, back to Chan-Wook Park. He's a really great director. He's very stylized. He also did one movie, I think, an American film. He's done only one American film recently, or not recently, a couple years ago. I can't think of the name of it. Look up his IMDb. No, he didn't. No, he didn't do that one. You racist. You think Korean?
No, he was involved in it. He produced it.
Oh no, he did. He did Stroker.
I'm looking at it.
He did Stoker. He did not do. He did not direct. I get it, but I'm saying he directed. He directed Stoker. That's a film that people said was really good. It's a weird, odd horror film, or maybe not, psychological terror film.
Son of a bitch.
So Chan-Wook Park did this film Thirst. Thirst was the film that followed I'm a Cyborg, but That's Okay, which is like, I guess, a weird quasi-comedy.
It's not okay.
And it was that had followed Lady Vengeance, which was the third in the Vengeance series. And this film Thirst, I remember hearing about it a while back. Obviously, when it first came out, I was like, I got to see all of this guy's movies, even though I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 of all his films. And every one I've seen have been really well done. And Thirst, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, it's a vampire film. And I kind of gleamed what the information was just from what the tagline was basically this guy who turns a woman into a vampire and then his life becomes a living hell. Apparently that's what it was sold as. And
that's kind of sort of true, not really.
Sort of true. So Danny, how did you hear about this film and why did you want to do it?
I don't know how I heard about it. I heard about it recently though, and I just was like, hey, it's a South Korean movie. Let's watch it. It's probably good.
That's a fascinating tale. So how
Yep,
does
it's
this?
really amazing. And then you'll never guess what happened.
What did you do?
I told you, hey, let's do this movie, and we decided we're going to do it, and we're doing it right now.
Did we actually record that episode about it?
We recorded it as we speak. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh. This is like we're time traveling while we're talking.
Wow.
It's insane.
It's happening live right now.
So Thirst is this film that stars the fabulous actor. I've seen him in a couple things. I'm sure I've seen him in more than one thing actually. I don't know if he's done any American
Kang-ho.
films. He was also the one of the leads in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. So Kang-ho Song plays Priest Sang-hyun, and I'm just going to call him Priest from now on. So Priest is this guy who's, I guess he works as a last rites sort of priest at a hospital for the dying.
Seems depressing.
What's that?
It seems like a depressing job.
Yeah, I think he wanted to do something more. Like from the background we heard, because he has a sort of a blind teacher or a blind sort of I don't want to say sensei. That sounds fucking racist, even though that's Japanese phrase.
Jedi Master.
Yes, he sort of had this guy who was in who taught them the ways.
He's like the Obi-Wan of priests, of blind priests.
Does he say this is pod racing? You believe at any time in this film? Because
Yippee! This is pod racing.
So Sang-hyun, the priest, he at a young age he was actually, I think he was going to school for sciences and stuff like that. I believe they say that, and he's just become unsettled and he's becoming very bored with life and working as this priest who's reading last rites to people. You know that he's also giving confession to a lot of the nurses that want to commit suicide. I can imagine at a job like that, where you're essentially seeing people die, it can take a toll on you. So a lot of these nurses are like wanting to commit suicide, and he's just telling them like, forget about your ex-boyfriend, just get on with your life, take some medicine, and telling him to basically mind his own fucking business.
What a dick.
And so he decides to find more meaning to his life, and he goes off to did he go to Africa? Some part of Africa?
Yeah, I did. This part was a little vague. He wants to go participate in an experiment for some weird disease, which I don't think is a real disease in real life.
No. There's a disease that's killing off people in, I'm gonna say, I don't know if it was Africa. I'll just say
it was. No, I think it was in Africa.
And it was interesting. I think this is the first Korean film I've seen with any like actors of African descent of all time. Like I've never seen any African actors, and it was nice because they were just there. They were acting, so it was like sort of an international flair to this film. Because Korean films tend to have mostly Korean actors. If you don't know about that, so he goes off to this. He goes up to this area in Africa where I really feel he goes to this area in this country. I'm just gonna say this country. I don't know. I wasn't sure. And he wants to get infected with this disease just for science's sake, so they can study him and see his reaction to it, so he can feel like he's helping people's lives by taking this infection, right?
It definitely helped people in the long run.
And what happens is, and it's supposed to be an ironic film, obviously this guy's a priest and he gets infected with this strain of virus that kills him, but then he comes back to life. So the whole joke of the film is this guy who basically dedicated his life to God is now this sort of ungodly creature. And what goes from there when he gets infected?
Okay, so this is kind of a vague movie, but anyway, he gets infected. He starts like realizing.
What's vague about it?
Vague.
I know what's vague about it. I didn't say fake. I said
like just a chain of events. It's kind of like now he's with his family, and here's this girl. Like I don't know. It just seemed a little like not too much of an explanation.
So
like,
he dies at the hospital essentially,
yeah.
And then he's revived. He revives himself, or not by choice, I guess. And he gets bandaged up. I don't know why they I guess they bandaged him up at the first time.
Because he's like all blistered and shit.
Oh, I thought that was just to hide his identity from all those crowds of people who heard this tale.
Yeah, but it's like, why is he considered like a prophet? Because he survived. Like,
yeah, he survived this. He survived this virus, and of course, any people that believe follow this religious sort of background.
Yeah, but then how does like that lady, the mother, know that eventually? Like, he's like famous in the world for like.
I
Some
think so.
random thing.
I think they randomly find this out. They find out that he. Oh, this is what happens. Okay, yeah. The mother must have found out it was because she wanted him to pray for her son who had cancer. I
Right.
think that was. I was trying to think of what the guy's name. I think is it Kang-woo? That's funny. It sounds like kangaroo. So I think this woman, she's like this middle-aged woman.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Kang.
it's Kang-woo. So her son of Kang-woo is this guy who's like this sort of obnoxious man boy, childlike man-child guy.
Oh, he really is annoying.
He's so annoying, but he's apparently he had cancer, and so she brings him because she knew him as a kid. He would hang out with Kang-woo when they were children. And also Taeju is this the wife of Kang-woo. She was, I guess her parents had abandoned her when she was young.
Yeah, so it's like he married his sister.
Essentially, so Lady Ra, I believe, is the mother, and she's funny in the movie, but like later on, she's funny. Not like in the beginning; she's sort of just a bastard in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, she's a bit of an asshole.
So Lady Ra, raised those two, and instead of sort of having them as siblings in a way, she almost just breeds the daughter, not breeds, but like trains the daughter to be married to her son Kang-woo, who's this sort of weirdo. It's always funny to see a dramatic film where a fart is used. You don't expect.
It's
like,
not
farts.
really. I don't know. There's a lot of like weird humor in here. Like when she
It's very
falls and they
straightforward.
laugh at her, it's like, what the hell is that?
So essentially, we're introduced to Taeju when Priest Sang-hyung is brought in to pray over Kang-woo, and Kang-woo miraculously his cancer disappears. So there's a lot of weird stuff in this film in that sense that it's sort of dreamlike, but it feels very like fantasy story in a way.
Yeah, it gave me. It did kind of remind me of Evil Dead Trap at points, a little bit.
Evil Dead Trap in what way? Part 2?
When the
Part
guy,
two,
when the
okay.
fucking ghost is like.
Yeah,
the-
that I saw in a sense of more like Macbeth. You know, in Macbeth, and like he's killing everybody, and then he kills. I forgot who the hell he kills. People who love Shakespeare are probably like, you fucking moron. But he ends up killing somebody very important, and Lady Macbeth. I think he kills a king or something. And Lady Macbeth just sees like the guy's blood on her hands, even though she has no blood on her hands. Sort of like
Yeah, but like
ghostly.
when he's fucking her and that guy's in between them,
That's
Kang
funny.
Woo's-
Yeah, that's sort of the artistic sort of thing. Just like when we watch Miike films, Takashi Miike, he always has some
Yeah.
weird shit that happens in the film. Like there are films where Takashi Miike does where it's sort of normal and then something bizarre happens in it without explanation.
Well, that's why I like him so much.
Yeah, right. But in here, it's a little bit more connected to the storyline as opposed to being something that just doesn't make any sense. It's more
Yeah.
like the two characters are seeing the physical. It's almost like a play, just like a Shakespeare play in a way, where a dead character will come back as a voice, like as a chorus. As a sense of conscience for those two because they killed them. But they're having nightmares because midway through the film,
They feel bad.
they kill the husband due to the wife's manipulative machinations, and she's saying that he's been stabbing her legs and stuff and attacking her, but he's just sort of been like an idiot. He's sort of like a man-child. So she's a woman, obviously. The character. Well, why don't you get into who Taeju is, and we'll get to that stuff.
She's really creepy, even before she becomes a vampire. When she's like going in his mouth with the fucking thing and stuff, with the scissors.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
She works at a garment sewing sort of. They
That's
sew,
a great
like,
weapon, by the way. I love that weapon.
They sew sort of wedding dresses, like traditional Korean wedding dresses. I assume that's what they did. It looked like they were wedding dresses. And
Yeah.
she's obviously she's frustrated with this life. She doesn't want to be in the shitty town, married to a shitty guy. And the thing is, he is a shitty guy, but he's not as shitty as how she makes him out to be. We're sort of manipulated as an audience to only believe what she's saying because of what's going
Right.
on. But he seems just more of a dork. But she's sort of
He's like slow or something. Like he's like maybe like
he's a
slightly.
doofus. And she's
I think he's like past a doofus. I think he's like mentally slow. Like
she's growing to resent Lady Ra and Kang-woo, which is funny because I just read a news report today, which is sort of similar to this, where a woman uses, a lie to further her advances. This is not that good. Apparently, in Brooklyn, there was this guy. His girlfriend screamed rape about this other young guy, right? So this guy and his friend went to that guy's house who his girlfriend claimed was raped, and they killed him, and he got arrested. Apparently what happened was The girlfriend was having a threesome with two guys. One of the guys who just got murdered, and one of the other guys who was having sex with her. Not her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was not part of this threesome. He had no idea about it. Of course. One guy pulled out a camera phone to record it, and she said no. So she got so upset that she said the other guy raped her. Now that guy's dead, and her boyfriend's going to jail for killing somebody who he thought raped his girlfriend. And
oh my god,
it's not a funny story.
Is she gonna get in trouble?
I don't know, because in the website, like the news report website, did not out her name. So there's a lot of. And the thing is, you got to take rape accusations very seriously. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So there's a lot of people who've been killed like that, and I'm not here to shit on people that. I'm not talking about any woman that says rape, is full of shit. Cause
no,
that's
she's
giving. A lot of women.
She's ruining it for people who are actually raped.
It's this particular woman that did it. It's an asshole, and that's sort of like what reminded me reading that today about when we did this episode. So Taeju is a woman who's manipulative in a way, and we don't know that she's manipulative. Although I had a feeling about it, like midway, and plus just the idea of the film.
Well, she's like a psycho. She seems like insane or something.
Yeah, she does look like she's ready to pop.
Even before all of it.
And we understand why. Well, we don't understand really. She's sort of like a female American psycho in a way, where she's using manipulation to get her goals, and she becomes, once she has this freedom of becoming, infected with this vampire blood, you can see that she wants to, do what she wants, because she's always been under the thumb of her mother-in-law, and that's, and you understand she was raised this way, basically under the thumb of somebody else who's brainwashing you to marry their doofus son, or beyond doofus, as you would say. So I can get why she's, wants to get the fuck out. Actually,
what's a cool thing I learned from this movie is that you can be a vampire and still have sex.
Yeah, it's none of that Anne Rice bullshit, right? Because I always wondered, like, because I remember
they
a lot
can't
of people
have sex. Their sex is like basically like the orgasm of drinking blood and reading thoughts.
Right, like the Anne Rice books, which was funny because I remember like people like before I even read it, because I had a very good friend in high school, and he was gay. I didn't know at the time, and he would say, "Oh, these books are great. They're great, but there's a lot of gay stuff in them." So I'm reading it, and I was like, "It's just guys talking to each other. It's not like the vampires."
No, it does get.
I know, I get it. I got up to book 3. I got to read the rest of those, but they weren't having any like penetrative sex with each other. The vampire.
No, it's not like that. It's just
right.
Like
it's more of an emotional.
Like
it's emotional bond, and it's not a problem having an emotional bond with people. Like there's no.
But
problem
no, there's a guy. At one point, Lestat eats out a girl on her period.
Yeah, that's like the witches, right? That's one of the witch things. But
no, that's not. That's not the Witches. That's before that. I haven't read the Witches, to be honest. So,
but there was also I know there was another. I remember I used to be reading Buffy fan fiction way back when, and somebody wrote a fan fiction of, I think, Angel the vampire eating out Buffy when she had a period, and I was like, I'm not reading this. I'm not interested in this. Good for you. But speaking of women reading, erotic film, this is. Most certainly, like, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend,
like a porn.
This is like a very erotic film in that sense that it's like, I don't know, like when I watch films that have sex scenes in it, I'm not really titillated. I wasn't titillated with anything with this.
Is this honestly like a South Korean vampire version of like Grey, that 50 Shades of Grey thing or something?
I guess. I mean, I guess it's an erotic. I guess it's an erotic scene. Like for me, it wasn't erotic because it's too tame. I've seen, I mean, for God's sakes, the stuff
you watch a lot of porn.
The stuff that I watched,
you watch like a lot of porn. So,
I mean,
this is nothing.
To me, this is nothing. This is like, this is like looking at the ingredients of an ice cream cake. You just you see it, but there's nothing there for me. And to think, I'm sure when I was younger. I was like, I'm sure I was an Asian foul. I'm pretty sure I was when I was younger because I was an idiot. And they'd be like, oh, man, how great would it be to an Asian girl? So if I was like 12 years old, I would have loved this. But I got over that because
You would have just squirt your pants.
Plus, I also, I had dated a Japanese girl for a while. She cured that shit right quick. Right. And she beat my ass. So this film is a very erotic film in that sense. Like if you have a girlfriend that's into this stuff, or even a guy friend, a boyfriend that's
don't
into this
watch
stuff.
It with your mom. There are literally 4 5-minute sex scenes in this movie.
Yeah, like there's a whole scene where the guys, they're actually having sex with her. Like it's like a whole emotion. Like I always find those scenes, like sex scenes in films, like useless for me. I don't know.
Good for that actor though.
Yeah, good for him. He actually showed his wiener in the film. I didn't think they would like. I've never seen. It was the first
They did
Asian
show
film.
his wiener.
Like, and they didn't blur it out. But I'm thinking those are Japanese films. Like they. Blur
No,
out the
apparently
wiener in
this
those
is the
films.
first South Korean movie to show a dick on
Really?
screen.
Good for
That's
them.
what I saw that. I feel like I read that.
I feel like I did something important by watching this film, by seeing Kang-ho Song's wiener in a movie.
Yep. This is the first mainstream Korean film. Okay, so mainstream.
Yeah, but
maybe
this
not.
is it's a very I would hate to say it's a very Western film, but I think a Western audience would appreciate the stylization and the way that the movie moves. Although Korean cinema, South Korean cinema, has its own sort of, it's good. Like South Korean films,
Yeah, there's
are
some
really,
crazy
really
shots
good.
in this movie. Like
It's
just like the
beautiful
way the
shots in this
camera's like
film.
following him and shit. Like at certain points, it's like, whoa, that was crazy. Like you could see that it's like following him from laying on the floor and then up and then around. Like it's crazy.
So this film does have this dreamlike quality, very Shakespearean play, especially with the husband coming back as a ghost, because they take the husband out of the way. She's been lying. Taeju obviously been manipulating Sang-hyung, but he's an idiot too because he's getting into this whole illicit affair
Also,
with
why
her.
doesn't he change out of his priest clothes? Come on, I get it
He's-
looks cool.
he's
You're
stuck.
a vampire, but
He's stuck. It's obviously the film is about a man who's struggling, like I said before, becoming
Yeah, I
this
know, I know.
creature, and he's just becoming monstrous after a while. And he's trying not to kill people. He doesn't kill. The only person he kills is really Kang-woo. Although his inactions towards the end is letting other people get killed. And
Yeah.
so Kang-woo dies, he drowns. They throw him off of a boat, and he puts him under. He finds a, and it's funny because he's like, it for some reason it reminded me of something from The Leftovers, the final season, which I can't talk without spoiling it for Danny, so I'm not going to say it. But there's
Yeah,
a
sure.
whole thing about you have to believe a character of what they say in this film, because Sang-hyung, the priest, says that he found a whole town under the water, like in that little lake that they were in, and that he had to put him inside of a closet underwater and then put a rock on top of Kang-woo so he wouldn't float back up. And I was like, why the fuck is there a town under the water? Like, it didn't make any sense. But that comes back, and like he haunts the priest by locking his homemade coffin and putting a big rock on it with water. And Taeju's having nightmares of him just laying on their bed, and he's just wetting the bed and everything. It's really interesting,
Right.
but it's very cool. I just like all that sort of. It's not really.
it's how you can't tell if it's real or a dream. Or
I know
what.
it's supposed to be symbolism of guilt, but like symbolism of guilt would just be the rock by itself. It's not like him actually on the bed making goofy faces. That's like hitting you over the head with a hammer sort of symbolism. Also, what is up with that? You know that one guy who I think he was a police chief or something. Like he always
yeah. The one that was at their party when they
he
found out he
kept
killed.
giving like these long stares to Taeju, like, and they don't,
Right.
they don't say anything else about it. And the mother's catching this. Lady Ra is noticing this. So I don't know if there was some sort of weird flirtation, or I thought maybe he was like sexually assaulting her or something, but they never get into it. They never
I
explicitly
think
say why it is.
I think they suspected her.
No. At the beginning, like just when they're all playing like mahjong, like this is before Kang-woo dies. There's like him staring at her, like these weird stares at the wife, and the Lady Ra would just catch it and look and give this weird look, and you're like, what is this look? He does it a bunch of times in the film before.
I guess I
dies.
didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. For some reason, it was weird, and I was trying to wonder what that was about, and I thought maybe he was assaulting her too, and she would have some sort of plot arc where she kills him as well. But they end up just getting like slaughtered towards the end of the film. And how would you describe Lady Ra as a character? That sounds like an awesome rap name, but go ahead.
Lady Ra. She starts out as a fucking asshole, and she actually kind of vaguely. Who she remind me of? It kind of reminded me of like the happiness of the
Katakuros?
Like it reminded me of the mom from that a little bit. I think I kept thinking of it, and then but then she becomes really funny when she's in a coma and like.
Yeah, it's just like she's in a catatonic state. By the way, I was very wrong about the Handmaiden, because there's the Handmaid's Tale, which is a show on Amazon, and The Handmaiden is based on a novel by called The Fingersmith. So I was completely wrong about that whole thing. Disregard what I said at the beginning. I'm stupid.
He is so stupid, everybody.
So Lydia Ra, which sounds like the name of a rapper called Lady of Rage from the 90s.
Right.
It's a rapper called Lady of Rage. You should look her up. She has like these big sort of Minnie Mouse ears out of afro hair. It's very funny.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, yeah. So this whole thing, like, he is completely Father Sang-hyun. He drinks blood from, I guess, patients that are comatose and stuff like that, which is funny. It's funny the first time he does it when he drinks the blood off the fat guy.
Yeah, it's like a straw.
And Taeju freaks out and runs out of the building, and him confronting her. He's like, he realizes now that he's crossed the threshold of drinking blood. Like, since he feels godless or like a creature beyond God's reach, that he might as well just give in to his lustful desires, and which brings him into this. Oh, he also did kill the priest, his elder. So I guess he is a dickhead. Priest No, I believe is the guy's name. The blind guy inside the wheelchair,
right?
Giving him blood.
But, that was because the guy wanted to be killed. He seemed suicidal and upset.
No, he wanted to become a vampire too. He was essentially saying, "I want to see. So give me your blood so I can get infected."
How do you even know it would work? What didn't he? Did he not seem like just giving up on life unless he's allowed to become a vampire? I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like I want to die. He was basically saying, "Can you give me your blood so I can,
Well, he's willing to say, "Do this terrible thing that will like make me go to hell just so I could see it again." So I guess he killed him because of that.
So maybe he wasn't really religious too, and maybe that must have pissed off.
Yeah,
Sang-hyun could be in a way. But what did you think of Kang So-hong's performance as Priest Sang-hyun?
I thought he was really good at seeming like a torn man who doesn't know what the fuck to do.
I I especially like that scene because there's all those people that have been idolizing him, thinking he's the greatest. Remember, and he purposely goes into that camp for them to lose respect for him when he tries to fake rape that woman.
Oh, that's what that was about. I didn't understand why he did that.
Towards the end of the film, he goes into this camp because all these people that were kissing his ass in the beginning, saying he's so great, he's so wonderful, and he's essentially saying them like, listen, don't idolize me, I'm a piece of shit. So he fake assaults this woman in her bed. I don't think he would have went through it because they start throwing rocks at him, and he starts smiling. So he did what he wanted.
Yeah, I was honestly a little confused about that whole.
That's
part,
what I got from it.
That probably makes sense.
Because the funny part of the beginning is when he goes into that area before he talks to the priest, and they're like, "Oh, you're so great," and then he just floats away from them, and they're like in shock because they're like, "This must be a fucking miracle," because he just literally just jumps and flies away from them, and they're like, "Holy shit!" That's like a great scene. And but I like how his character has his arc where he's realizing he's pretty much on a damned road. So when he turns Taeju, because I was like, when I first heard this film, I was like, oh, it's a guy who turns a woman into a vampire. I actually thought it was about a woman vampire that turns him to a vampire, but I was wrong. And I was like, whoa, is he not going to turn to a vampire? Because he's kicking her ass, he's choking her out, like trying to kill her and stuff. Because I was actually surprised.
Yeah, I actually wasn't sure where it was going. I didn't read anything about the movies. So.
It's good to do that with movies, believe me. And when he does turn into a vampire, and then she wants fresh blood. That part that made me laugh so hard is when she gets that random guy in the highway,
right?
And she kills this guy in the highway. And then she throws him into the woods, which is one of the funniest fucking images I've ever seen in a movie. She's like, because instead of her just kind of running off with the body, she just throws him into the woods, like from a good distance away, like if you're throwing a football. It's so fucking funny, and I'm sure it is done for comedy's sake because like it's just such a black humor to this film. And then she's drinking his blood, and then like there's a fight there's a chase scene when he's jumping off of roofs, which is some sort of obvious CGI, but it's still done pretty well. I was
wondering how they did it actually.
It's so good. Like it's really cool. It's a really interesting film. And what did you think about the last half of the film with the whole, them fighting? I mean, it does a predictable sort of ending where he obviously is going to try to, commit suicide.
It was kind of cute at the end. I liked when she killed that guy, like punched him in the face and his head just like snapped back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like obviously the movies obviously has this very black comedic feel to it. Like it's not sold as a comedy film, but Korean films have that sort of subtle humor to them, and especially that.
This is way more lighthearted though than any.
Yeah. Maybe it was coming off of I'm a Cyborg and That's Okay, which is a film I think about two people at a mental patient facility about this girl who thinks she's a cyborg. But this
Okay.
one, like, so he might have probably just kept that on with the sort of, weird aesthetic of fantasy or horror and stuff like that, and just sort of evolving that thesis in this film. But
Yeah.
the last 10 minutes of the film, and plus also the mother who's in a vegetative state, and she just becomes funny because now she's trying to move her hands and she's trying to point out to the rest of the people that, that those two had killed her son.
I
And
like when she's blinking like so fast.
yeah, because she becomes like sort of a human Ouija board and stuff like that. But it's funny because she's a bastard, but she becomes a lesser of two evils in the film, or lesser of three evils, I assume. And she's funny that way. She becomes this prop, a living prop in the film, and she's very good. Like the parts where when those guests come over, and then Taeju lifts her up with the whole chair intact, like to get out of the room, and they're like, "Wow, you're strong." Because that's what happens. It's a funny movie. That's what I wasn't expecting about this film. I was expecting it to be this super depressing horror film, just like most South Korean movies are, but which are very good.
I was too.
But it's very funny. There's a lot of good funny stuff in this film. And
What
you
would
know,
you
when
do if you saw somebody lift up a person on a giant chair like it was nothing?
honestly, I would be super shocked and then like play it cool and just leave. That's what happens with this film. Like the mother-in-law should have done that with just those three alone in the room. Like, there's nothing ever good about confronting people who might have supernatural powers. It's not
Yeah.
gonna end well. Like, I don't know if she thought that they had supernatural powers. She probably just thought they were like weird psychos.
No, she saw like weird shit happen. Like
But yeah, there's like I would never confront somebody or put somebody in a situation where somebody with supernatural powers that can instantly kill you. You know what I mean?
but
not
it's but it's the only option. 'Cause
I
you can't
guess.
move.
I guess she couldn't help it, but she does make it out towards the end of the film. But that whole last scene on the beach or the desert, yeah, it is the beach. It's like a mountain. What is it? It's like a cliffside
Yeah,
beach,
it's a
something like
cliff.
that. And they're in this car, and he's doomed them. He's driven them out so far out that I don't even know how that is, because like where is there a cliff? But I guess it could be in Korea. It's probably just made up for the
I'm
film.
sure they have cliffs in Korea.
No, I know that, but I mean, in an area where there's nothing else, like it's just desert and sand, and there's a random cliff to the water. But I guess it could be possible.
The countryside, who knows?
No, I get it, but you got to reach some sort of topia area, like green somewhere. Whatever. Anyway, so the whole last scene with the car and him kind of destroying any way for them to get back because it's reaching sunlight, because they decided to run off, and her trying to get into the trunk and their fight over the top of the trunk. What I don't understand is, why didn't she just jump in the water? You know what I mean? You could just...
You can't escape sunlight unless you go like super deep.
That's what she could have done. She could have... I mean, she's not going to die. She could have just
Yeah,
done,
but she'd
gone
have
in
to
the water.
stay. She'd have to stay under there all day.
Like 8 hours. There you're going to keep dying. You tell me there's no vampire books that have done that before? There has to be vampire books that have done that, where somebody
I've
jumps into
never
the
read
water.
a vampire book where people stay underwater all day.
Somebody look that up. It has to exist. But that whole scene is comedic, and it does leave this sort of romantic finale where, at the very beginning, when he first sort of came onto her, he gave her his shoes. Like, he physically lifted her up and put her in his shoes, and then she decides to wear his shoes at the end when they sit on the car and they burn to
Aww.
death, and her shoes fall off. I like this film a lot, actually. I thought it was really... It's a classy film. The erotic stuff didn't do anything for me, but I think a lot of people would like that. Like, if you're...
I got a
into-
boner
it-
at one point.
There's women that are, like, into romantic stuff, I guess. And, it was, no, I'm not even going to bring it up. But I think people
I got
enjoy
a
this
boner,
film.
but because it was a vampire movie, I came blood.
Oh, by the way, how did your day go? Your day went fine today? How was it? Talk about
Oh
that.
yeah. I forgot. So I was this is a side story. I was at a coffee shop today, and this fucking like some lady came in and she seemed upset. It was an older lady. She walks
And you're
out.
inside or outside?
I'm inside talking with the cashier lady. Just getting my coffee. I go in there all the time, and this woman comes in. She's all upset. She walks out. I'm just looking after her like, oh, what was that? And then all of a sudden, this like old man, like he's like 70 something, like all angry looking, is
Oh, I thought he
pointing
was
at
60.
me.
Yeah.
And he's like runs into the store, and he's like screaming at me, like saying I'm laughing at him. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, I'm like in shock.
And was
Like,
that the first time you saw him?
I've never seen him in my life.
Okay.
He thought when I was looking out at the woman that I was looking at him and laughing. That's what he thought. He probably saw like a reflection over my face or something. I don't know. And then I'm like, no, I'm not. And then like he tried to pull out my septum piercing, and I backed away. And then he's telling me that I'm smiling at him. I'm like, no, I'm not. And I actually almost started smiling because it was like a reflex, And then he left, but it was like crazy. This guy was crazy.
You better watch out, dude. This is in Manhattan or Long Island?
This was in Queens.
Ooh, boy, you better watch out, man. That's your neighbors for you. Hey, you know what's funny?
I think he actually is my neighbor. Like, I'm not sure if it was him, but I think I actually
you were laughing
saw
at him. You didn't notice it last time. This week, I've been running essentially like clockwork at the same hour of the day every morning on treadmill with my hoodie on. I have the same set of hoodies, and my chest have been hurt. My nipples rubbed raw, essentially. Like I would look at my nipples, and they have like red blisters on them. And then yesterday I ran again. I was like, man, my chest really hurts. So then when I took my hoodie off, I had blood droplets coming out of my nipples. I had essentially rubbed the skin raw on my nipples. It looked like I was pregnant with a monster or something.
Yo, what the fuck is wrong with you?
That's what happens. It happens with runners a lot. They'll run. There's photos of runners when they're like
Vaseline
running
on your nipples.
They're running down actually like marathons, and that you see two big like nickel-sized blood drops on their shirts.
Oh my god! Actually,
what
there's
I did
a thing
today,
in the office about that. Andy does that.
So what happened today is that I and then that night I was like, man, because I would have like almost like a red rash on my skin above the nipples and everything. So then I did the wrong thing. I put body lotion on it, and it burnt like a motherfucker.
You know who
supposed to put talcum powder.
You know who would love your nipples is Sang-hoon, the vampire.
Yes, he would.
Movie.
It's a blood related thing. So essentially today what I did was I put
You need to put Band-Aids with Neosporin over it.
I put Band-Aids over my nipples, and whenever I took my top off, it looked like I was some sort of BDSM.
It looked like Sin City. Like the guy from Sin City.
Yeah, it's like that guy. I was like,
if you saw it under a black light, you would just look like Marv or whatever the fuck his name is.
Exactly. But it was very embarrassing. But I learned how to. Now I have to run with a t-shirt underneath my hoodie, which is not very freeing. Anyway, that was a blood-related story for this film.
That's great.
And anyway, with that, Danny, what would you give this film? What's your rating?
I would give this film like an 8 out of 10. Punching a man in the head in front of your guests after you were just playing a nice game of mahjong, and his head snaps back, and then you kill the rest of your guests.
I also would give this film an 8 out of 10. You get to learn something today. If you want good blood, you take a corpse and hang it up by the neck, and you cut its feet off, and the blood will drain out, so you can have a copious amount of blood to drink. Very good.
And put it in Tupperwares.
There you go. So with that, Danny, what's the final word?
Blood.